This video is brought to you by AccraGhana.com, a website and project dedicated to the vibrant capital city of Ghana, Greater Accra, located on the west coast of Africa at the Gulf of Guinea.
If you've ever tried to find a place to live in one of Ghana's bustling cities, you know it's a battle. Now, there's a law that's supposed to protect tenants, but the reality is, it's pretty much ignored. So today, we're going to unpack this paradox at the very heart of Ghana's rental crisis.
To really get a sense of the pressure here, let's start with this number, 1.8 million. According to the 2021 census, that's Ghana's housing deficit. That is a staggering shortfall, and it creates this intense competition that puts all the power in the hands of landlords.
And this is what that power actually looks like for everyday people. It's the ultimatum that tenants like Amelia face. She and thousands of others are told to pay 1, maybe even 2 years' rent in advance. For most people, that's an impossible amount of money. The choice is simple: pay up or get out of the way for the next person in line who can.
So how on earth did we get to this point? We're going to break it all down in 4 parts. First, we'll unpack the crisis itself. Then, we'll look at the law versus the landlord to figure out why it's failing. After that, we'll dig into the blame game. Is it a loophole or is it just incompetence? And finally, we'll examine this systemic breakdown of the entire system.
All right, first up, let's really break down what makes this market so incredibly tough. What are the key ingredients of this crisis?
It's really a perfect storm. That massive housing deficit we talked about, it creates desperation. And that desperation allows unregulated agents to just cash in, and it lets landlords openly ignore the rules because, hey, there's always another tenant waiting. And the state agencies who are supposed to enforce the law, well, they often seem completely powerless to do anything about it.
And this is where we get to the central paradox of this whole situation. There is a law on the books specifically to prevent this kind of exploitation. So why is it still happening every single day?
Okay, just look at this contrast. On one side you have the law, Ghana's Rent Act of 1963. It clearly forbids landlords from demanding more than 6 months' rent up front. But then you look at the reality on the ground, where landlords are routinely getting 12, even 24 months' rent. This isn't just a small difference, it's a huge chasm between the law and everyday life.
So this is the million-dollar question, right? If the rule is written down in black and white, what's stopping it from being enforced? Well, the answer really depends on who you ask.
And that brings us right to the blame game. We're going to look at 3 conflicting theories for why this law fails so spectacularly. And these theories come from the very people at the center of this whole mess.
We're going to hear from the government agency in charge, then from the tenants union, and their, let's just say, fiery rebuttal. And finally, we'll get a wider view from some real estate professionals.
So, theory number 1. This is the official explanation from Ghana's Rent Control Department, and it all hinges on one very specific word, a lacuna. Now, a lacuna is basically a loophole, a missing piece in the law. Manuel Kosu from the Rent Control Department argues the law's fatal flaw is the word demand. He says, look, the law forbids landlords from demanding more than 6 months' rent, but it's completely silent on receiving it. So, if a desperate tenant offers a full year's rent, the landlord hasn't actually broken the law by accepting it. It's a subtle distinction, but it's absolutely crucial to their argument.
And the crucial point here is that this turns every single case into a problem of evidence. To go after a landlord, the department says it needs proof, like a recording that the landlord explicitly demanded the money. Without that proof, it's just the tenant's word against the landlord's, and the department says, well, our hands are tied. But the Ghana Tenant Union? Oh, they are not buying it. Not for a second. Their representative, Frederick Poco, completely dismisses this whole lacuna argument and instead levels a direct accusation of incompetence against the Rent Control Department.
See, Poco's argument goes much deeper than just one word. He points to a whole other part of the law that's being completely ignored. Landlords aren't legally allowed to just make up their own rent prices. They're actually required to have their property officially assessed by the Rent Control Department first. And according to Poco, this almost never happens, and the department does absolutely nothing to enforce it.
So, from the tenant union's point of view, this lacuna is just a convenient excuse. They argue the real problem is an agency that's failing to enforce multiple parts of the law, not just one tricky clause. And that, to them, makes the department fundamentally incompetent at its job.
But what if the problem is even bigger than a single loophole or one department? A third theory suggests the entire system is just fundamentally broken.
Victoria Sampa from the Ghana Realty Professionals Association offers this perspective. She looks at the situation and sees an outdated legal framework that just isn't fit for purpose anymore. For her, it's not about a lacuna so much as an old, ineffective law that needs a complete overhaul.
And this table really shows you how the problem is systemic. You've got an outdated Rent Act from way back in 1963, you have an agency, the Rent Control Department, that's widely seen as incompetent, and then you have a newer Real Estate Act that basically operates in its own separate world. Each piece is failing, and none of them seem to be working together.
So what's the real cause of this crisis? The truth is, it's not just one of these theories. It's all of them, all happening at once. You've got a potential loophole in a very old law, an agency accused of total incompetence, and a fragmented legal system where nobody seems to be on the same page.
And the end result of all this is a system where the laws written down in books have almost no bearing on the harsh realities that tenants are facing every single day. That connection between legal protection and actual practice has been completely severed.
Which leaves us with a final, really difficult question. When the very laws, agencies, and frameworks that were designed to protect people are seen as outdated, incompetent, and fragmented, how can real, meaningful change ever actually be achieved?
This video is brought to you by AccraGhana.com, a website and project dedicated to the vibrant capital city of Ghana, Greater Accra, located on the west coast of Africa at the Gulf of Guinea.